Hi guys, Cheyenne checking in. Welcome back to my channel if you're welcoming back. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Bree. Welcome to my channel where we talk about all things crime, mysterious, and things that are just creepy. So if that sounds like something you like, or if that sounds like something you might like, then hopefully you enjoyed this video and more to come. Today's video is going to be so crazy, you guys. Of course you would expect the crimes of people on death row to be terrible, like why else would they be on there? But y'all, you know, it's just like when you read the actual crime itself compared to when you actually start getting into the details of what happened, it's just like, my God, it's terrible. And today I'm going to be giving you guys 5 death row inmates and their crimes and why they're on death row. Like I said, a lot of these are pretty crazy. Some of them are a little graphic. And of course, we like short and sweet intros, so I'm going to stop babbling on and go ahead and jump right into the video for you guys. In November of 2002, 2 cellmates, Brandon Basham and Chadrick Fultz, escaped from a Kentucky jail, and they eluded authorities on a multi-state crime spree that they went on for like a couple of weeks after they escaped before they were eventually caught. They were initially in prison because Basham was serving his final years of a conviction that he got for forgery, and Fultz was actually charged with something a little more serious. He was charged with abuse of a child aged 12 or younger. Fultz became Basham's cellmate not too long before the two plotted their escape. One day after escaping from this Kentucky jail, they reached the home of a man by the name of James Hawkins. Basham tells him that their car broke down and that he needs to use his phone so he can make some calls. The man agrees and lets him come in and make his calls. He made 2 calls, and at that point, Hawkins agreed to drive him to a nearby convenience store. When they go on this ride, Fultz also enters the car because he tells Hawkins that he's with Basham or whatever. At some point during the ride to the convenience store, Hawkins instead agrees to drive them to where where they said their car is broken down. I'm saying that like it was really a car broken down somewhere. No, of course it wasn't. But he agreed to drive them to where they said it was. They told him it was in a town about a half an hour away from where they were. During the drive, Fultz changes the direction twice. He tells him that the car is disabled somewhere else one time, and then he tells him it's disabled another place another time. By the second time that he changed it, Hawkins was only really agreeing because at this point Fultz was holding a knife to him and to keep him cooperating. Once they reached a pretty abandoned location, the two then tied Hawkins up to a tree, and then they stole his car and drove off. They ended up in Indiana where they met with one of Basham's ex-girlfriends. The two had met because she was an corrections officer. I assume not anymore. I couldn't find anything updated on really what she was doing now, but I assume after being involved in all of what I'm about to tell y'all, she's not anymore. So she was a correctional officer, and Basham was an inmate at a detention center a few years back, and that's how they had met. So they went up and met with her and also one of her friends, and over this next few days they just kind of did like a lot of drugs, partying, living the life that they couldn't while they were in prison. During this party that they started having with the girls, they asked them if they knew anyone that they could get some guns from, and the ex-girlfriend tells them that she has a friend, so they come up with the plan to steal his guns while he is away. So the girls lure him out to breakfast under the guise that they're just trying to be all friendly and have breakfast with him, but no, really they were setting him up so that Basham and Fultz could break into his house and steal his guns, which they did. So now they had guns too. During this time that they were eluding authorities, they were actually almost caught one time. At one point while they were staying in a hotel, officers started knocking on the doors of the hotel that they were staying at because they had reports that they were there. And one of them looked outside the door and saw that the police was there, and he got his gun ready, like he was about to pop off, but the police ended up leaving before they got to their door. It was like right there. How coincidental? That's crazy. But nothing ended up happening, but they were almost caught during that time. The crime that would ultimately get them the death penalty was the kidnapping and murder of 44-year-old Alice Donovan. On November 14th, she was kidnapped from a Walmart parking lot in South Carolina. She made one call to her family after she was taken, but she was never heard from again afterwards. Basham and folks were both arrested days later, not on the same exact day. They got arrested on different days because of different situations that they were in when they got arrested. Basham got arrested because he was trying to carjack this girl. He held like a gun up to her, but he didn't know that she was on the phone at the time. So he tried to play it off and be like, oh, sorry, I just kidding, didn't mean to scare you. And she was like, what the fuck? And she called 911 and he got arrested. But Foxy was arrested like the next day. They were both charged with many crimes, including kidnapping resulting in death, carjacking resulting in death, felon in possession of a firearm. They were charged with a lot of things. I would be listing their counts for like a minute straight. Despite their efforts at the time, authorities were not able to locate Alice Donovan's body. During the trial, the prosecutor was considering the death penalty for the two, but the family of a college student named Samantha Burns, another woman who was murdered by the two during this crime spree, they didn't want the prosecutor to give them the death penalty because Basham was kind of pondering the idea of giving them some information in regards to their daughter if he didn't get the death penalty in relation to the Alice Donovan case. Obviously, that didn't come true because they're on death row. Folks pled guilty while Basham was found guilty, and they were both sentenced to death in 2004. In January 2009, Chadrick agreed to work with authorities to locate Alice Donovan's body, which they did a few days later. They tried to also locate the body of Samantha Burns, but they were never able to find her, although they both admit that they killed both Alice and Samantha. The remains that were found were confirmed to be Alice Donovan's some months later, actually, in July of that year that she was found. They also received a life sentence for Samantha Burns' murder. In 2005, the family of both women filed a suit against the Kentucky jail that Basham and Fox escaped from, claiming that the officers had an indifference to training and they were understaffed, allowing them to escape when they shouldn't have been able to. And that case was settled in 2009. Okay guys, this next one here we have if there is anyone more deserving of this death penalty, it's this person I'm about to tell y'all about. I'm not even kidding. You'll see what I mean. Cavani Savage was the leader of a drug criminal enterprise known as the Cavani Savage Organization, or KSO. He participated in, honestly, the list of what he didn't participate in would be shorter, but just to name a few: murder, arson, conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, just everything. This man ordered the murders of so many people, ranging from rival drug dealers, people he thought were disloyal to KSO, witnesses, family members of witnesses, potential witnesses, people he just didn't like. Anybody was fair game to this man. And when I say anybody, I mean anybody. For example, in March of 1998, a man by the name of Kenneth Lassiter was murdered by Cavani because they accidentally bumped into each other's cars while they were trying to park their respective cars. Crazy. No, I'm sorry, that's not even the craziest part. No. Cavani was acquitted of this murder after the lead witness, Tybius Flowers, was also murdered. Lamont Lewis and Robert Merritt were two members of KSO. They were two primary assassins for Cavani. They weren't the only ones within the group, but in relation to the crime that landed him on death row, these were the two important ones. So 1 week after he was acquitted for the Lassiter murder, he was charged for drug trafficking, where he was ultimately given a 30-year sentence for that part. Over this trial, though, he repeatedly threatened witnesses and even killed the family members of one witness by the name of Eugene Coleman. Eugene Coleman was a former member of KSO, and he agreed to testify against Cavani. In response to this, Cavani ordered the firebombing of Coleman's mother's residence. In the early morning hours of October 9th, 2004, Lamont and Robert firebombed Coleman's mother's residence, leaving no survivors out of Coleman's 54-year-old mother and 5 other family members, including 34-year-old Tamika Nash, her 10-year-old son Kaja Nash, 15-year-old Sean Rodriguez, 12-year-old Taj Portia, and even Coleman's 15-month-old son Demir. The family dog also perished in the fire. Lamont and Merritt also said that they shot upstairs to prevent them from even trying to escape. Lewis and Merritt of course, got the order from Cavani, but they were also assisted by his sister. Her name is Kadada. She was the one who provided them with the house location. Lewis, however, did not know that there were children there before he did the bombing, so he was actually rather upset by that. I feel like that's a pretty simple way to put it, but he was rather upset by the fact that there were children there. He didn't know that, so he confronted Kadada about this, and she said fuck them. She even put Coleman and a few others that were testifying on a website called who'sarat.com. Y'all, I screamed when I saw this. I cannot believe this is a thing. It's a website for people to put information of people that are like confidential informants or people that are like testify against people because, you know, they consider them rats. Oh my God, they are putting people's lives at jeopardy. And it's just like, you know, I'm not even going to put my opinions too much on that, but I don't like that. You guys, and the part that just really solidified to me that this need to die. This man, they had a phone conversation of this man talking about just killing kids on multiple occasions. He was talking about how he dreams about cutting the heads of rivals' kids off. Like, he was like, I dream about that shit. I was like, what? He really said that Eugene Coleman should bring barbecue sauce to his family's funeral to pour on them burnt bitches. Y'all, when I read that, I was like, someone execute this man right now. Do not hold back. Do it right now. In June of 2013, Savage was given 13 death sentences, 1 for witness tampering, and the other 12 were for 12 other murders he ordered. Kadada and Merritt both received life sentences, and Lewis received 40 years. It's probably because of his cooperation with investigators. After he learned that there were kids involved in the bombing, he was arrested by authorities, and after that he was like, I didn't know that, and then he agreed to work with them afterwards. This is another very heartbreaking case involving a child. So in this case, I basically read the court background from the court documents that were involved in the case, and they never list the daughter's actual name. They just call her JG, so that's what I'm going to call her in this video. JG was born in October 1999 to Alfred Bourgeois, a former truck driver, and Katrina, a woman he had an extramarital affair with. Katrina retained custody of JG in Livingston, Texas, and after a child support hearing in 2002, Bourgeois was granted custody of JG for 7 weeks. Those 7 weeks would be the worst 7 weeks and the last 7 weeks of JG's life. Over these several weeks, Bourgeois repeatedly tortured her, like literally tortured this little 2-year-old girl. She was often observed having black eyes, bruises, cuts, burns, and the really disgusting part, that's not even the most disgusting part about it, but a really disgusting part about it is that his wife did testify to this stuff, by the way. She would see burn marks on JG, but they would never heal because he would take his fingers and like stick them inside of her wound so that they would never heal. Oh, I was so motherfucking disgusted by it when I was reading this. It was so heartbreaking. During his trial, Robin, who was his wife, also testified that at one time he beat her so hard that the belt broke. And during his trial, the jury also heard how he would duct tape her mouth shut to muffle this little girl's screams. And even one time, this is the most, y'all, I literally wanted to throw up when I read this. Like, there is some parts like of these cases that literally my jaw literally drops when I read it, where I'm like, and y'all, this was one of those times. He made her, one time after he peed inside of a bottle while they were driving on a truck, because he always took them with him when he was driving, he made this little girl drink his pee. I was like, oh. That's when I was like, execution now. There was also pretty strong evidence of sexual assault. He had other daughters from his relationship with his wife. By the way, I didn't mention too much about his wife, but I don't want you guys to be like, well, why didn't his wife do anything like that? he was also being very abusive towards her too. So she was kind of going through her own stuff with him. I didn't know that at first because that was my first thought too. I was like, how is his wife just letting this stuff happen? But then I read about they had a pretty tumultuous relationship themselves. I was like, okay, I can see now. But back to the evidence of sexual assault. So his wife said that at one point in their marriage, he wasn't even sleeping with her anymore. He would sleep inside of the room with JG and another one of his daughters, and he would lock the door. Another time, Robin also observed blood in JG's diaper. An examination performed by a doctor was initially inconclusive, but the same doctor examined JG after her death, and she determined that her injuries were likely caused by sexual molestation. Bourgeois also frequently talked about how much he just wanted to kill JG, and she just made this man irrationally angry for no reason. One time he told Robin that he wanted to kill JG and have Robin report her as kidnapped. The fatal day would come on June 27th, 2002. While Alfred was making a delivery, JG tipped over her potty chair, which Alfred forced her to sit in because, like I said, he would always take all of the family when he was making his long haul routes and things. So while he was doing that, he forced JG to sit on her potty chair like the entire time they were driving. How disgusting and nasty. But on that day, she accidentally tipped over her potty chair, and he just became so angry, and he grabs the toddler, spanks her, and afterwards he grabs her and smashes her head against the window 4 times. Robin awoke and noticed that JG was motionless and limp, and she started freaking out and started attempting CPR. All during this time, Alfred was pretty unfazed. In fact, all he was worried about was getting to his next delivery and unloading his car for his current delivery and getting to his next delivery. JG was not waking up, so they decided to finally get her to the hospital. Robin was trying to. Alfred, again, was unfazed, so they get her to the hospital. They came up with a story that she fell. In fact, before paramedics came, Alfred placed her on the ground outside and tried to be like, oh, she fell from out the car. No, it's like, no, obviously doctors are going to be able to tell that that's not what happened. And that's exactly what they did. They told investigators that her injuries were not consistent with falling from a truck. JG was put on life support and she passed away the next day. It was then that Robin admitted that the truck falling story was a lie. Alfred's daughter even said that the story was just a story that her daddy made her tell. JG's autopsy also revealed extensive abuse that Alfred put her through. It revealed over 300 injuries that range from healed to partially healed to not healed at all. Alfred was, obviously this is death row. So he was obviously, arrested and convicted of the murder, placed on death row. He was set to be executed this year, but recently in March, a judge stayed his execution because they found that he had strong grounds for claiming that he had intellectual disability. Lynne Davis was a former New Orleans police officer that was known as RoboCop due to his really large size and also Desire terrorist because of his really aggressive policing style. Desire refers to projects that were located in New Orleans. Between 1987 and 1992, he was suspended 6 times and received 20 complaints. I don't understand how this man still had a job. Tell me, what other job are you going to receive? Your manager going to give you 20 write-ups and you still got a job. Paul Hardy and Damon Causey were 2 drug dealers that David would extend protection to in return for favors. One of those favors being to murder New Orleans resident Kim Groves. On October 10th, 1994, Groves saw Davis's partner pistol whip her nephew. Okay, I'm just going to say a couple of things here real quick. So I put nephew in quote because it must not be her real nephew, because in the actual court documents, when it was given the court background, it put nephew in quote like it wasn't her real nephew or something. So I guess that's what they meant, or I don't know. Maybe they're just really trying to isolate that so they know it's her nephew. But the other thing is that I was reading on Wikipedia before I went to the court documents, and the Wikipedia says something completely different about how apparently they had the wrong suspect that they pistol whipped, and she was filing a I'm sorry, I was going to get into the next part, but they said that they had the wrong suspect. I don't know how true that is. That's not what they said in the court documents, but I don't know, maybe that's not something they would put in there. Anyways, after that situation, Kim Groves decided to file a complaint with Internal Affairs, alleging that Davis and his partner had engaged in police brutality. Davis learned of the complaint on October 12th, and the next day he called up Paul Hardy to discuss killing Kim Groves. Davis and his partner started planning this murder with Hardy. They started doing things like they brought him down to the police station to show him pictures of homicide crime scenes. They also spent the next few hours patrolling her neighborhood trying to find her. Davis described in great detail what she was wearing and where she was so that Paul Hardy could find her. He located her around 11 p.m. that night and he shot her in her head, killing her. Now, unbeknownst to Davis and Hardy, the FBI was actually conducting an undercover operation known as Operation Shatter Shield because of the significant corruption that was going on in the New Orleans Police Department, and Davis was a target. Operation Shatter Shield involved soliciting officers to protect what they thought was a warehouse holding drugs for shipment. And because of this operation, they conducted surveillance and recorded phone conversations on many officers, including Davis. So they were able to listen to all the phone conversations he was having with Hardy about killing Kim Groves, all the planning that they were doing for it. So they had pretty strong evidence, like obviously it was this man right here. Davis was tried and convicted in 1996 for depriving civil rights, using his badge to do so, and witness tampering. Like I said, convicted in 1996. He was initially sentenced to death, but the witness tampering conviction was later thrown out, but it doesn't matter because he was resentenced to death anyways in 2005. That being said, he's been on death row for a long time, probably one of the longest people on death row. Hardy was convicted of conspiracy to violate civil rights and witness tampering. His witness tampering conviction was also thrown out. He was initially sentenced to death, but his sentence was later commuted to life when a judge found that he was intellectually disabled. Groves' 3 children settled a lawsuit with the city of New Orleans in 2018 for $1.5 million. Okay, so that's all I have for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and hopefully you'll be back for more. I had a really interesting time reading all of these. Actually, this is probably one of my favorite ones that I've done so far. Does that sound bad to say? I don't know, but hopefully I'll see you back for my next one. Bye.